All right, hello, guys. Today we are talking about wearing shoes or not when you're training for hiking. And specifically, we're talking about wearing barefoot, going barefoot, or wearing shoes while you're doing your strength training. Now, this was a question that came up with one of my online clients the other day, and they were just asking, look, should I be wearing shoes when I do my strength training or should I be wearing barefoot? And she was like, in the past, I've been recommended to go barefoot. For some exercises, that's not super comfortable. And I also see for a lot of the exercises that I demonstrate and ones I put up, I tend to be barefoot. And I thought it was a really interesting question, and we explored it a little bit in our private training group for Summit Strength clients. But I thought it was something that was worth exploring today because it is something that comes up, and there's a lot of advice floating around, and it can get a little bit confusing if you don't actually know what you're aiming for with this. So today, we're answering the simple question: if when a hiker is performing strength training, should they be training barefoot or in shoes? So I'm sure you probably have heard arguments around the benefits of barefoot walking before. So in the hiking world, the whole idea around barefoot shoes and zero drop shoes is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there are a lot of arguments around that, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, and yada yada. And I don't tend to like to dive into that argument because it can go forever and ever and ever. So today we're just specifically talking about your strength training. And we're going to be exploring whether or not you should be doing this if you're in the gym or at home doing your strength training. So to start with, let's talk about barefoot training in the gym or at home. Now, it does have a few potential benefits if you're doing your exercises without shoes on you. The first potential benefit is force production. So basically, when you are barefoot or you're very, very close to the floor, having your feet actually on the floor will allow you to produce a little bit more power actually through your legs and through your movements. The idea behind that is if you're wearing shoes, there's a particular platform between yourself and the floor. And when you're actually trying to exert force into the floor and produce power in your body through your movements, it does lose a little bit through the shoes. Now, in all honesty, that isn't a huge deal. Now, if you're a power lifter, that is a big issue and you want to be making sure you're getting every single little bit of force production you can. But as a hiker, it isn't the worst thing in the world if you're losing a little bit of force. It's not going to ruin anything. You don't really need to stress about those minimal things. However, if you really do want to make sure you're getting the most out of some of your heavier strength training, so whether it's your squats or your deadlifts or your lunges or whatever it is, barefoot might be a good option just to get you going a little bit more. Another benefit on the barefoot side of things is the balance. So again, similar to what we were talking about just before, is if you're wearing shoes, sometimes just having that little thing between you and the floor and something that raises your center of gravity can impact your balance very, very slightly. So if you're doing things like step downs, if you're doing things like single leg deadlifts, which require a fair amount of balance, and you're struggling with that, and you're falling over all the time, going barefoot might potentially help there. And it can be relatively effective and with a really, really simple change just to help you balance there. So that might be something you look into. And then there also is the argument that going barefoot during certain exercises will actually help your feet strengthen up. So the little muscles of the feet often do get neglected in training, but as hikers, they're very, very important to make sure they're doing their job and they're strong enough. And sometimes if you are training barefoot in the gym, if you are doing those step downs or those single leg deadlifts or specific foot strengthening exercises, having your feet free so they can actually move naturally and also get those little muscles doing their job can be helpful for foot strengthening. So if you were looking at that and you were like, I actually want to strengthen up my feet, it might be a potential area you'd look at. Now, on the other side of things, I'm not saying barefoot is the way to go. There are a few potential benefits there. But on the other side of things with your shoes, there's also, a few potential benefits there. So for one, quite a few exercises that hikers tend to do in a normal training session are going to be much, much more comfortable with shoes on your feet. So when we're looking at calf raises, they're just not comfortable barefoot. It's very, very rare you'll be able to do, people will be happy to do that, particularly when you're doing extra load. If you're doing any type of jumping or landing training, again, you probably want to be wearing shoes to restrict that, to help make that feel a little bit more comfortable, or any other exercise which might just feel uncomfortable being barefoot. So, that's an argument. You don't want to be uncomfortable in your training as much as you can. That's definitely a benefit there of wearing shoes. It also, in a gym setting or a public setting, it is probably necessary for you to wear shoes. It's a rare gym that'll let you walk around barefoot or whatever it may be. And even if you are training in a gym, in your home gym, it's a safety thing. Like if you ever dropped a weight on your foot, oh my gosh, it is not much fun. Even a 2 kilo weight, oof, it hurts. And if you've got a little bit of give between your foot and that weight, if something happens, it's probably a good thing. And it's not something to sniff or put your nose up at, and it's something you want to be aware of. And also on the other fact is if you do have any foot issues, so if you are dealing with plantar fasciitis, if you are dealing with, ankle issues or any type of foot pain, having shoes on when you're doing exercises is probably a good thing. Unless you've been specifically recommended from a podiatrist or whatever to go barefoot as much as you can, sometimes just having a bit of cushioning between your feet and the floor in those situations can be a really, really good thing. So there's something to think about there. And then on the other side of things that we obviously do need to talk about here is the case for orthotics as well. So if you do wear orthotics, which I know a lot of hikers do, there's two real situations you fall into, whether you should wear those orthotics during your training or not. Now, there's probably a few more areas that go into this, but the way I think about it is this. If you normally wear orthotics, and if you go in your strength training and you're training either barefoot or in normal shoes without your orthotics, and you're going through that, and you can control yourself well enough during your exercises. So if you're doing your lunges, your squats, your step downs, and you don't notice that foot collapsing, if you don't notice your knees turning in or anything else falling significantly out of alignment, then you might be fine to train without your orthotics, and that might not be any dramas. On the other side of things, if you are doing your exercises, whether it's barefoot or in shoes, and you're doing it without orthotics, but you find your foot keeps on collapsing, your knee keeps on falling in, you're really struggling for balance, or whatever it may be, it might be worthwhile wearing your orthotics, because they're there for a reason and they're giving you support in certain areas for a reason. So it might be necessary in that situation. Now, I know this podcast probably hasn't given you a clear answer to the question whether barefoot or shoes is better in your training, but hopefully it gives you a few insights into sort of where you might be coming from when you're making this decision. And if you do see someone recommending to go barefoot or someone recommending to wear shoes during your training, you might have just a little bit of extra insight to make that decision for yourself and see where it is. But often when it comes down to it, it's purely just experimenting and see what feels better. If you train at home and you train a session in barefoot and you train a session in shoes, one feels better, one doesn't, you've probably got your answer there. And the same thing if you're regularly dealing with aches and pains and one thing feels better than the other, you probably have your answer there again. You don't have to get too complicated. I think people go way too far on this, going down to evolution and all those many, many years around how he didn't wear shoes and all that. I honestly think that's a little bit too complicated, and I think the stuff we talked about just then should be enough to make your decision from there. So I hope you got a bit of insight from this today, guys. I hope you've got some answers. Now, if you were wanting to explore this a little bit more, if you were wanting some help maybe with some of the foot strength exercises, or wanting to know how to improve your balance, or anything else that we talked about today, which we just touched on, but you'd like to see done in a little bit more detail, then I would love for you to come and join the Training for Hiking and Trekking Facebook group. Now, in that group, I'm always happy to go deeper into these subjects, give you specific videos for exercises, or explore things a little bit deeper, which you may need help for. So if you want to have any questions or you simply want to join part of the community, it's the Training for Hiking and Trekking Facebook group. I'll leave a link in the show notes below. But thank you very much for listening today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you very soon. Bye.